Yeah, cool beans. So the exercism that I worked on for this month is called the ISBN Verifier. Essentially what we had to do is come up with a method that returns true or false based on if an ISBN number is valid or not. Before I dive into the exercise, I really quickly wanted to just introduce myself since I'm quite new in the community. So my name is Bence, and in case anyone's wondering how to pronounce my name, the secret is that the last E is not silent, so it's just simply Bence. I'm a junior developer, and a fun fact about me is that I used to be an emo and I played drums in a band, so I had the hair and everything. And in case you're looking for someone who's never really going to turn down a drink or who would make an awesome junior developer in your team, then I'm your man. All right, to the ISBN numbers. First of all, let's just talk about what a valid ISBN number is. And oh, by the way, I didn't know this, but an ISBN number identifies books. I had no idea. So in case anyone was wondering. So a number is valid if it's exactly 10 digits long, it has numbers between 0 and 9, and it can also contain a capital X, but capital X can only be the last character of the number. So essentially, X stands for the number 10, and it's called the checking digit in case anyone's interested. And one of the most important things about the ISBN number is that it has a formula that needs to result in 0. This formula is actually quite long, so I put it on a separate slide so we can talk about it. So let's just take this one, this actually valid ISBN number as an example. And in that case, this would be the formula. It looks quite long, but essentially what's happening is that we're taking the first number and multiply it by 10. Then we take the second number and multiply it by 9, third number by 8, and we go all the way to the end of the number. And then we add all this together. And then we do a modulo 11 on it. So what modulo 11 does is that it divides the number by 11 and then it returns the remainder. If that remainder is 0, awesome, we have a valid ISBN number. If it's not 0, then the ISBN number is not valid. In terms of tests, we had a lot of tests for this exercise. I think we had like 17 altogether. All of the test cases were passing in the ISBN as a string, and they can be with or without the hyphen. Some of the test cases were checking if we can handle incorrect length. So some of the strings were too long or too short. Sometimes they contained invalid characters. And in few cases, the X wasn't at the correct spot. And in like the last part of the test cases were issues when the format was absolutely fine, but the ISBN formula didn't return 0. So in terms of the solution, we started by just declaring the ISBN class and the class method. And then I just wrote some pseudocode just so we can walk through the whole exercise step by step. First of all, we knew that we need to strip away the dash if it's necessary. Then in a couple of cases, we want to immediately just break out from the method and return false if the format of the ISBN number is not correct. So for example, if the length is incorrect or if it has invalid characters, then we just immediately want to come out from the method and return false because that number is not valid. And last but not least, we know that we'll need to run that ISBN formula and return true or false based on the result. So starting right at the top, if the number includes the dash, then we are g-subbing the dash into nothing. Otherwise, we're just returning that number. So this line of code actually works just fine, but I figured we can just go with the g-sub. The worst thing that can happen is that the number doesn't contain a dash, in which case g-sub doesn't do anything. So we just continue as normal. But if it does have the dash in it, then g-sub with the bang nicely takes care of it. As a second part of the exercise, we want to break out from the method if the format of the ISBN number is not correct. And I initially started doing it with like guard clauses and ternary operators. So return false if it's too long and also return false if it's too short. And I got to like 8 or 9 lines of code when I realized, well, hang on, this is a perfect job for a regex. And we came up with this one line of code, which is just perfect. And it ticks all of the boxes that we need to for this ISBN number. If you're anything like me, I look at regex and I think, well, this is way too cryptic and I don't know what the hell is going on. So let's just take some time to talk about this regex real quick. So the \d and in curly braces 9, what that means is that we're looking for 9 consecutive digit characters. Then in the square brackets, we're seeing that the 10th character can be either a digit or it can be a capital X. And then we put the caret and the money sign to the beginning and the end of the regex, and that sort of locks in that 10 character length what we need. So with this one out of the way, the last part was writing out the actual, I guess, ISBN formula that returns true or false. For that one, this was my first iteration. So let's just take 1 minute to go through what is going on here. On line 6, we're declaring the array variable, which is only necessary because all of the test cases passing the number as a string, and we know that we need to take a look at every single element of the string. So what we need is an array. So the split method nicely sort of converts that string into an array for us. Then we are declaring a counter and a sum variable on line 6, and we'll see in just 1 second why we need those. And it's between lines 10 and 14 where the magic really happens in terms of the actual formula. So we're iterating through this array on line 10, and on line 11, we're immediately starting with a ternary operator, which pretty much says that if the element that we're working with is a capital X, then we need to change that to a 10. And on line 12 and 13, what we're doing is that we take every element, we convert that to an integer and multiply it with the counter variable, which is initially 10. Then we add that number to the sum variable and take away 1 from the counter. Then we go back and keep iterating through the array until it's done. And essentially these 4 lines of code will give us the ISBN formula, which is the first element times 10 plus the second element times 9, and so on until we get to the end. Then on line 15, we have a big number stored in the sum variable, and we do a modulo 11 on it. And with the double equals 0, we pretty much get a Boolean value as a return value. It's either true or false based on the number. So long story short, this was my first iteration, and believe it or not, this completely fine, passes all the tests that we need. But I thought, well, she's a little bit ugly, so let's do something about that. So on line 6, we can actually avoid declaring the array variable, and all we need to do is chain the split and the each method together. So take away line 6 and add it to line 10, and now we're left with number.split.each, which in my opinion is still quite easy to read, and it's definitely fewer lines of code, which is very good for us. On line 7, we can also just not use the counter variable, and all we need to do is use each with index instead of each. And on line 11, I also went ahead and changed the ternary operator to the if statement shorthand. Arguably, the difference is not massive, but for me, it was just a little bit easier to read and made a little bit more sense. And on line 12 and 13, because we're not using the counter variable anymore, we can just chuck in the index placeholder, take away all the white space, and this was my sort of last iteration and my solution for the problem. And just as proof, I guess, of a good measure, here's a screen recording of this method passing all of the tests that we need to, so all 17 run just fine without any issues. So that was my exercism for this month. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
Thank you very much. That was super interesting. Anybody got any? Lots of claps. I love it. Questions, discussions. Just lots of appreciation. That's what you want to get when you present your code.
I have one really quick one. What was the software you're using for your slides? I just really like the code preview snippets. I'll copy it.
Well, it's funny because I saw you at the Sydney meetup, right? And you used what I thought I was using. Anyways, mine is called Carbon. It's just an online website, and essentially what it does, you type in your code and then you can save it as a JPEG. I thought you were using the same, but I might have been wrong then.
I think I'm using like CSS or something to rebuild the whole thing.
Oh no,
so it's so much more tidier.
Yeah, it's a website called carbon.com. It's painful because you literally need to like type in everything one by one, and if you change something, it doesn't have any like code snippets or anything, but it looks cool. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you.